Alright, so keep in mind that this video is kind of a weird requirement because you really don't have to write anything, but I do need you to at least listen to it and kind of work along with it. So it's not a situation where it's hard to do, but there is a situation where if you don't do your job today and you're messing around while watching this video, that I could take your points. So please just make sure you pay attention during the video. It will be over soon enough, but what I'm teaching you is going to actually make next week a little bit easier for you. Next week we're going to be asked to make a graph and table of values. So again, the skill is not difficult, but what I want to show you is something on your calculator that makes it a little bit easier to get done. It does still require a little bit of work, but again, imagine we had to complete this table of values. So I'll just kind of give you a preview on what next week is about. Next week what's going to happen is it's going to give me an equation, or give us an equation, and it's going to ask us to complete a table. You will eventually learn that for that table you want to use the values -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. From there, what that means is if x is equal to this value, that you want to plug it in here, see what you get as an answer, and of course whatever answer you get represents y. So you will take your calculator next week and you will type that in as 8 parentheses -2, close it, -4 equals, and get the answer of -20. And then you'll have to do it for this one and type 8 parentheses -1, close, -4, which is -12. And then you'll do it again, 8 parentheses 0, close, -4, which is -4. And you'll do it again here, 8 parentheses 1, close, -4, which is 4. And then you'll do it one more time, 8 parentheses 2, close, -4, which is 12. Now, that's not a lot of work, and I understand that, but the thing that you have to remember, pay attention to, is that math gets a little tougher. And imagine we had to do the same thing, except we had 5 or 10 points for something like this, where we have to type 3 parentheses, type a number to the third, -2 parentheses, type that same number to the second, etc. There has to be an easier way to enter the same base information without having to start over from scratch. So again, what I'm saying is, instead of having to keep typing I'll put this in your view, instead of keep having to type the 8, the parentheses, the minus, and the 4, the only thing that changed was 0, 1, 2, and the negatives. So there had to be a way to do that, and what you're going to type, and again, you don't need to write this right now because I'll probably do it once or twice next week, is second and then enter. Second enter pretty much is a recall function. So what it does is it recalls whatever you previously entered, and then allows you to use the arrows to change just small little parts on it. The only issue about this is that you cannot change a one-place digit into a two-place digit, because as a computer, let me show you, as a computer, if let's say you want to turn a 3 into a 14, this 3 only takes up one blank, and so because of that you can only turn the 3 into something like an 8 or a 4 or a 2, because all those take up one blanks. What you can do though is you can take a 2-digit number and delete a certain part of that number to make it a 1-digit number. But let's look at the problem real fast just to kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So it says complete a table for the function, and again, yes, we still have to do it the same way we did before, where we put in -5 parentheses -2, close, plus 18 equals, and get the answer of 28. But instead of having to type the -5 and all that, I'm going to hit, and you should probably try this one time for yourself, second enter, and notice that what happens is it pulls up what I typed before. All I have to do now is use the left and right arrows to kind of navigate my way through the equation and turn my 2, notice how it's blinking on the 2, turn that into a 1, and then hit enter, and that gives me 23. Same thing if I want to do this again, but the difference is this is a 1-digit number, and this is where I said you can delete a certain part. We don't need this negative anymore, so we put the cursor over the negative, and you see the DEL button. This is a delete key, so you delete that negative. Now your cursor is over the 1, which we want to now turn into a 0, and so you hit enter, getting the answer of 18. Again, second enter, go back to here, turn 0 into a 1, getting 13, and then second enter, turn the 1 into a 2, and get the answer of 8. So it's not a lot less work, but it does make things a little easier. Plus it saves you from having to type all those extra pieces and possibly messing up there. But the most important part of doing it correctly is going slowly when you first type the function into your calculator, because if I accidentally type, as some of us have done before, something like let's say I went back to do this and I typed -5 parentheses -2 minus 18, and then I get an answer and I go through all those answers and get this part. I didn't catch the fact that I actually put in -18 when instead it should have been a +18, so all my numbers, as it says there, will be wrong, and I won't even have any idea that it was wrong because of how it was. So for the next 3 questions, I just suggest that you pause the video and use a calculator to try each table, or at least to try a couple numbers on the table. What it does is ensure that you understand how to do the process. If you'd rather not do the full work, it'll help if you at least type the information with me. You don't have to remember how to do this stuff, and for some reason my printer messed up, but you don't have to remember how to do this stuff. But don't go asking me next week if you really don't want to try it right now. Just if you want to know how to do the shortcut, just at least try a couple of them. Make sure that your brain remembers you doing it, and other than that, that's about it. So I'm just going to show 3 tables. Again, the best thing to do for you right now is to pause this video and at least try it. Even if you don't write the numbers, just kind of type the numbers in and see what numbers pop up and make sure they match. But again, what you do is you put your 12 parentheses -2 minus 34 equals, and that is your -58. And again, the skill that I tried to show you today is, without having to type all that in, hit second enter, go back, turn this into a -1, which is -46. Second enter, turn your -1 by deleting the negative and turning 1 into a 0, which makes -34. Second enter, 0 into a 1. Second enter, 1 into a 2, which is -10. And so that again is pretty much what you're going to be doing. Now the difference between or what they'll also have you do Monday is plot these actual points, because these actually make a line. But again, we'll talk about that on Monday. But the tables are going to be used for us to actually create a graph of the information. So, but again, without that table, you can't do it. So that's why I'm trying to make sure we look over today and kind of review what to do whenever you need to make a table. So on this one here, we have -27. Don't want that. -27 times -2 plus 11, which is 65. Then we take second enter, go back, turn -2 into a -1, you get 38. Go back, second enter. Again, after a while it gets boring, but at least it's boring enough to where you don't have to do a lot of extra typing. You get 11 next. Second enter, turn this into a 1, you get -16. Second enter, turn this into a 2, and you get -43. One more example before we get ready to go. The reason this graph is different is because of the fraction, and whenever you do have a fraction, keep in mind that what you multiply by makes a difference, and we really don't want decimals. And so because this has a 3 on the bottom, you'll notice that from 0, instead of on the other graphs like I'd had before, I counted by 1, so it went from 0 to 1, and then 1 to 2, 0 to -1, -1 to -2. Because there's a 3 on the bottom of this, I'm going to count by 3. So I'm going to count by 3, then 3 more makes 6, -3, 3 more makes -6, and that is going to actually give me nice numbers. So if I was, for example, to have something like 1/5 x plus, let's say, 6, my table here, before I get into it, yes, 0 is going to be in the middle, but because 5 is on the bottom, I would want to count by 5. So I would do 5 and 10, -5, -10, and that would give me nice numbers for my graph. But anyway, getting back to this, you always want to make sure that whenever you have a fraction that you put that fraction into parentheses. So parentheses 1 divided by 3. X turns into -6, so parentheses -6 plus 6 gives me the answer of 4. Again, I don't want to have to type all that in, and this is the reason why I don't want to have to do all that, because that's a lot of buttons to push. Go ahead and turn this -6 into a -3. We get the answer of 5. Second enter, delete, and turn that 3 into a 0. Get the answer of 6. Second enter, turn 0 into a 1. No, I'm sorry, not a 1. That was silly. Turn 0 into a 3 and get the answer of 7. Notice I knew I did something wrong because I got that decimal there. That's how I knew I had to count by something different. But the answer here is 7. And then second enter and turn that into a 6 to get the answer of 8. So again, there's your situation there, and that is what you'll be doing next week. So stay out of trouble for the rest of the hour. Make sure you find something quiet to do. Again, for those of you who have not had me, what happens is if I have to tell you to be quiet too much, I'd simply just take your points away from your quiz because you're distracting the environment. But other than that, like I said, just go ahead and relax, find something to do, and wait for the bell to ring, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.